I've been playing Hades a lot lately. Hades has a bunch of, or like the underworld has a bunch of different layers, right? So you've got Elysium, Asphodel, Tartarus. And so Elysium is for, your gloried fighters, whatever. Asphodel is for most of the other people.
People
the
that
way
are
it's-
just okay.
Yeah. And then Tartarus is for like the worst of the worst, like the most depraved. And I was thinking about like the way that I've got my shit set up in my setting, and I'm like, I really want to have the like different regional deities, and I don't just want to like have them reskinned. And so I've been wrestling with that a lot lately. And so I was thinking about making like the Shadowfell and the Feywild kind of like, obviously they're opposites and they're reflections of the mortal plane. But like the Shadowfell is where like lost souls go, where it's like if you don't,
if you're godless when you die.
yeah, like if you're godless when you die, like you didn't get buried right, or like you died in a cave somewhere hungry or whatever, then you're a wandering hungry soul in Shadowfell, and then you're just like turned into this terrible, terrible monster.
So that's actually I think that's a pretty interesting concept. You have to bring you have to establish a number of things first, I think, to have that make sense. But this is okay. So this is the idea.
Yep.
So what? Okay, I just want to clarify one thing. When you say regional, do you mean like by different planes, or do you mean like regional on like in a worldly sense?
So in like a geographical sense, right? Okay. So like if you're in Greece, the way that your gods or whatever, like there'd be literal like god spirits, demigods, whatever, that do these functions. And then if you go over to like North America,
it's different.
Analog. Yeah, it's a different set of like otherworldly beings that fulfill these tasks, right?
So I really like the idea of I think that's a pretty neat idea. I've always kind of played it in my head if I wanted like a more fantastical fantasy setting that I would have regional gods in it, like where it's like they're only powerful in a certain area, that kind of thing. So this is my thought. The existence of like different like afterlife realms is something that like that's something that is true beyond what's happening in the mortal world. So that's like gods have to deal with the fact that there's an afterlife and there's different parts of the afterlife, and that's that's something that's just given. They don't have control over that. And one of the things that gods do is shepherd you into the proper place in the afterlife.
Yeah.
And that's done through rituals at death or before death.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of the way that I'm
to call. And the rituals they don't have to be performed by like a magic user per se. They just have to be done correctly. Yeah,
exactly. And that brings that religion's kind their soul carrier or whatever, whether it's I think Hermes / Thanatos in like Greece or whatever, and continue.
Yeah, so if that means like if you're godless, you're gonna have a poor fate in the afterlife. And if you are buried improperly, then you're going to have a poor fate. And I think I really I really am into people. Like I want players in my setting to have a reason to care about burial rights.
Yeah. That way you don't end up like Throck 3 Eyes.
Yeah.
And fucking just thrown into a ditch somewhere.
And there's so many like, I find that when you have a game where the mechanics are so like laid bare, like they're very obvious to the players, like in D&D, burial rights don't matter. Like mechanically they don't matter. And so either you're going to have characters that are really like into the role playing and they really want to like do something, or you're going to have it mechanically be part of a part of the game where it's like, something literally happens differently if I bury them or not bury them. And maybe that's your house rules that you're giving, but you're explaining to people like, like it's going to be really hard to resurrect someone if you don't bury them correctly, or the opposite. Or they're going to like, they will come like this person, like I've got a die roll and it's actually a pretty big percentage that if they're not buried correctly, they're going to come back and haunt this place. So like, all all those like orcs that you murked in this place, like you gotta bury them, or
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna like, or
Yeah,
they're
they're
gonna
just
be
gonna
haunting.
like.
They're gonna be haunting the dungeon when you come back.
Yep.
Um.
And so here's kind of what I'm thinking right now. And man, this is just everywhere, man.
Mhm.
So a person dies, their body is left out to rot, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they become like a malevolent spirit just around, or they become a ghost, or they become a specter or something. And when
Okay.
that thing is killed, then they get brought out to the Shadowfell as like, the I don't know, and then stretched out to the most like despaired version of themselves.
What if there are gods are creations of civilization, or not creations, but they are intimately tied to
Mm-hmm.
civilization and culture, and then there are more ancient things that are tied to nature itself,
Mm-hmm.
and dying in particular ways and not being buried in particular ways means that your corpse and your soul is now in the purview of that more ancient
Yes,
force.
I really like
So
that one.
like when you drowned at sea and you come back as like the swollen bloated corpse, like
Mm-hmm.
like walking around on the shore, like that's because there was like the
And those fucking
yeah
old gods would still
yeah
be worshipped by like sailors and shit. Like, yeah,
yeah
you'd still. Oh
but like you don't
man.
call them gods, you call them something different.
Yeah.
And they're much more impersonal. I would like
Yeah.
you definitely want them to feel different.
Yeah.
And
They'd be
they
your great old one
mhm.
kind of things.
Right. And I would want to put a lot of effort into making sure they feel very different and mechanically work very
Mm-hmm.
different than all the other gods, because you're kind of like when we introducing this idea, we're getting much closer to just having getting back to what you would normally do in D&D, where
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, there's a god and that just is in control of all the things in this one place
Mm-hmm.
instead of being regional. um so like you'd have to make them feel very different. Like
Yeah.
gods will answer your prayers and these won't,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So Greg, in this episode of the Lore Founder, do you want to talk about the afterlife
I think we should talk about the afterlife and
and burial
this
rites?
barrier and this like god sketch thing, barrier thing,
Yeah, I'm super down.
yeah.
Okay. I'm glad that we finally landed on something. It's only
Right.
been an hour and a
Yeah.
half or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, so
We've been
audience, you're not going to hear all this, but we've been talking for about 40 minutes on the
yeah.
mic, and I think we found our topic. Usually it
Yeah.
takes a lot less time.
Yeah, it usually we come in with a little more, and I did come in with like an idea, but it just kind of didn't take. But this one we're both really interested in. So, burial stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I in the honestly the big problem that I'm having is just like I want to have like a lot of symmetry, and so with this Shadowfall idea where it's like the place of lost souls, and like you can probably get there and just chill like as immortal. It's not going to be, in the words of Deadeye, this is a bad place. You do not want to be here. Shout out to Brendan Lee Mulligan. He played a great character. And like, what is the other version of that? Like, okay, in D&D cosmology, it's the Feywild, and I'm like, okay, so I guess that's my spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you can also have like mortals and shit go there. But like, if you are, if you're like meditative, in tune with nature in like a positive, like constructive way, like when you die, even if you don't get buried, you might just go full Iroh and then just end up chilling in the spirit world with all your other incorporeal
So, yeah,
dude skis.
I think the question we want to answer first is this a place that you visit in spirit or bodily?
I'm gonna go with both.
Okay.
I think both you could go to
Bodily would be like much more advanced through some other way.
like that, like bodily is like your planar gate kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you want to go, visit the spirits of like the old monks or whatever, like yeah, they're probably all chilling in the Feywild, or chilling in, whatever version of the Feywild they believed in. And so like if you want to go, you could do it, but you'd have to, either astral project
Yeah.
or die probably, or plan our gate, plane shift, whatever to get there.
Mm-hmm. uh the Yeah, that's something where you want the symmetry, and like I find that the Shadowfell in my mind is usually very well. I've got a pretty good idea of
Mm-hmm.
what it is, in the sense that it's a sort of it's a sort of nothingness,
Yeah.
while the Feywild to me is a lot harder to imagine and make explicit, because it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And especially if we want to be, if we kind of want this to be less culturally associated, like it seems like the concept that we're talking about has like these different places of the dead as being something that is transcendent of mortal culture.
Yeah.
Then it seems like it should be either more nature inspired, or more like cosmological, or like geometric form,
Yeah.
math inspired.
Yeah. And
Which is difficult.
yeah.
Yep.
No, it's really, and it, like, this is like when I'm driving in my car between stores, I'm like, how the fuck do I want to do this? And
Mhm.
so here's kind of what I've come to. So the Shadowfell is like this place of like dreariness and like just bad, like you like take the joy out of everything and then like strip it down to like just its like most negative,
It's
terrible things. Like all you have is like your anger, your hate, your despair, sorrow, loneliness, whatever, like sadness, all that stuff just gets turned up to 11. And then all of the beauty is just stripped,
it's muted,
right? And then in the mortal world is just normal. And then the Feywild, the like the joy, the happiness, maybe also the anger, but in like a different way. Like it's
righteous
turned,
anger.
yeah, righteous anger gets like turned up to 11. And so people, like, instead of being like existential and sad or existential and emotional, they're like over the top and emotional. Which is weird because some of the ways that D&D like has written, like Eladrin, for example, they're like, yeah, if you're a winter legend, you're really sad and you're existential, like nothing will ever get better. It's like, no, you're gonna be sad, but in a different way, I guess. And then also your plant life, your animals are all gonna be like really super kooky, crazy, weird, and like beautiful, generally speaking. And then any civilization that ends up there will also be this like super extra fantastical, right? Where that's kind of how I see it, where it's like you kind of like turn the dial up on like the quirky, quick, crazy, beautiful, like emotional in a more positive way in the Feywild, and then in the Shadowfell you just pull all of that back.
Yeah, the Feywild, like nothing's moderated. It's the densest jungle next to expansive, wide open cliffs that fill you with emotion just to see the beautiful, expansive landscape. That's probably what you'd have to do. A problem that I think you might have to consider is that if it sounds like in the like the souls stay around, they don't go away. So that theoretically means that your players could go and chat up anyone. What's the limit? How do you limit them on going and chatting up anyone? How do you make it difficult? And,
like a dead spirit?
Yeah.
I think you would have to make it difficult for them to like plane shift there, and then even though they are immortal in a different plane or whatever, like maybe needing to get to that spot is really difficult, like just geographically speaking. Like maybe the person that they're trying to find is up on a mountain somewhere, or maybe kind of like Avatar style, they just need to sit and meditate and kind of like try to find them that way, either by like astral projecting. Like you like I guess you wouldn't just be able to go there, walk around, find the person you're looking for.
Exactly.
Like as a mortal, you could only find other like mortal creatures that live in this other plane where some souls go. And so it'd be easier to meditate in that place and, you know, talk to the person that you want to talk to, but it is not easy.
Mm-hmm. So I've got a couple thoughts. Would be because I actually like the idea of being able to not for everyone, but with some people having
Mhm.
it be something relatively easy to go
Mhm.
to like astrally project into these afterlives, because then they're interactable and
Mhm.
you can have fun. You know, it's I am really into the like so and so got murdered. All right, let's talk to their spirit. You
Mhm.
know,
Dude, you have like fucking spirit investigators
yeah.
like in like going throughout the city where it's like, well, there's only one way that we can, you know, really find out what happened to this. We're gonna have to pull Bob's spirit
Mm-hmm.
and see who ganked him.
Yeah,
You know?
I think that's super cool. I'm like I really enjoy that. Uh, so a couple thoughts, like maybe like the longer someone's been dead, the more difficult it is
Hmm. I
to
think probably the
talk
more
with them.
abstract they become.
Yeah, yeah, the more abstract, and then maybe there's like ways that you can like bring them back to being more concrete, and you
Hmm.
know, and maybe that should be like a that's like a social test, right? That's
Yeah,
you,
you know, bring some of their old stuff,
you
like
know,
say some things that would, you know.
you're trying to get advice from this ancient mentor, and like you have to like, you know, they're just so calm and blissful and
Hmm.
like everything's all right. They've been in the
Hmm.
Feywild for so long, and then you have to
Their
like
like earthly attachments are so far
yeah, and then
gone.
you have to like bring fire back into their belly
Hmm.
somehow.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that they're going to actually like teach you or tell you this important detail from the past. Like that may be I think that
Hmm.
would be interesting. Um and I also like, you know, it's like which afterlife did they go to?
Hmm.
I'm gonna say this. I do think you should have more than two.
Yeah. So this is kind of how I'm thinking, right? Like a soul without a burial will go to one of those two places.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that they couldn't throughout their that afterlife they couldn't be like recruited or like do a
Mm-hmm.
penance or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and make it out to like a different god. But then you also have a situation where it's like if you devoted yourself to a god of any sort, you can, upon your death, be interred in a way, you know, burial rites where their messenger or the messenger of like that pantheon like
Mm-hmm.
comes, grabs your soul, brings you to where you got to be,
Yeah.
right? And then you can spend, you know, eternity in that god's version of the afterlife.
So is it going to be individual gods' own afterlives, or is it going to be like, no, we're going to take you to the good afterlife, and we're, you know,
I think they would take, so the way that I've kind of been setting it up is that gods have their own like little pocket of space because
because
gravity and
yeah,
mortality kind of
yep,
stuff, whatever. I think that like your body stays behind, but your soul gets pulled out to their, you know, palace in space basically.
mm-hmm.
And depending on like the pantheon, the overall like religion, like then you're bound to that version of the afterlife. Like if, you know, you're feasting in the halls of Valhalla, like with Odin, like yeah, your soul was brought because of your burial rites. You know, he was able to send for that messenger or whatever, he found you, brought you to Valhalla, and now you feast and wait. Or if you are, you know, Christian equivalent,
Mm-hmm.
you die, you know, your burial rites go, your soul ascends to uh God's pearly gates,
Mm-hmm.
and Peter tells you if you're going up or down.
Okay, so what if you can only easily go to the Shadowfell or Feywild, so you only have access to people that have not been buried or unbelievers?
Also, yes.
So someone dies,
Yeah.
and now there's a time pressure, just, you know, because
Hmm.
like where's the person, you know, person's gonna go, but
Like,
also
tell me how they got buried right
but
now.
also there's a time pressure on, yeah, but also there's a time pressure, like if society is aware of, you know, contacting the spirit
Hmm.
of the person that was killed or whatever, now there's a sense of like, okay, we have to settle this debt so we can bury them and give them like,
Hmm.
you know, let them move on with their afterlife. And leaving them, you know, not doing that is torturous and is bad
Hmm.
for them, and you know, like we, you know, it's immoral to leave them unburied for this long.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out, god damn it, players. Like,
Hmm.
why didn't you get anything last time you went in there, you know?
Hmm.
Like, that may be an interesting thing, an interesting time pressure. So like maybe there is a point where it's a lot more difficult for a soul to be air quotes saved.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a longer time since they've been, since they died, since when they were buried.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
And
I definitely think that would be the case.
yeah. And also if I think there's an implication here that if a messenger comes and takes you to a good place, a messenger can come and take you to a bad place.
Yeah. So this is where I basically I'm just like, what is the role of hell in this place? And I'm like, right now I'm thinking, is hell relative to the region that you're at? Right? Like if you are in a, Norse society and you die without your weapon in your hand, like you go down to Niflheim, and that's just fucking terrible. I don't know too much about it. Apparently it's bad. And if you die with or without your weapon in your hand and don't get buried, then what happens to you? Then I think you'd probably go to Shadowfell or whatever. But then like just a staunch part of D&D is the 9 hells, right? And so it's like, what are they? What did they do? Why are they here? And how do you get there? And so honestly, I think what I'd be doing is I'd just be pulling wholesale like the Blood War thing, where it's like the hells exist in probably most different religions, areas, cultures, whatever. And they are allowed to exist because, they pull souls to help in this battle against like complete and utter like chaos of the abyss. But that I'm still like I'm really fuzzy on that one. Like it's just not an elegant solution that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think that you're trying to keep too much of Player's Handbook, DMG.
Yeah.
D&D.
Well, I just think it's neat.
And
which is why I want to keep it. I like the idea of like the hells corrupt souls, make fun deals, and I like the idea of the abyss where it's like unfettered evil chaos demon things.
So what if there are a number of this is my thought.
Yep.
That there are there are gods of bad people, and their afterlives are shitty places, and people will bury you, so you go to these bad places.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
Right. And so it's like this, it's the same kind of thing. Like
there's salty earth.
there are regional, these deities are still kind of, they're still characters, they're still kind of regional. They're not something that owns, they're not
like a ubiquitous.
They're not a ubiquitous thing. But they're they're there as like, okay, this is this is the bad person, this is the bad place, and we're gonna if you get buried, like if you've been a particularly evil person, we'll bury you in a certain way to send you here. And
okay, that's neat.
And that's like your fate worse than death.
Yeah,
is the like, we're gonna do this particular thing to like make you go, so like.
And then I think probably also those places would, like those divine demi-planes of those hell equivalents might try to like recruit or gather souls from like the Shadowfell too, where it's like, hey, I don't know what happened to you, but instead of being this thing, you could come down here. It's not great, but you could be a thing again, or like they offer you a chance to be someone, and that someone is a devil, demon, or
instead of feeling all these emotions, instead you're just gonna be an intense kleptomaniac.
Yeah, you're gonna be an intense kleptomaniac trapped in a pyramid scheme, and trying to corrupt mortals. How does that sound? I don't know. That's something that I was like thinking about, because I do love the idea of like the 9 hells, and I just think it's neat.
So
but I just don't.
I think that these beings have to be working by a little, like these hellish places need to be working by a little bit of a different set of rules than everywhere else. And so there's something that they're doing differently.
Yeah.
That makes it, I'm not sure what that would be. But I I just to like give a reason to like why aren't they making their followers have a good time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no, if you're trying to like entice people to worship you, you're not going to be like you're not going to be threatening them with a bad time.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
So,
these are the ones that can more directly influence
hmm
the world, where
or
it's like,
maybe it's like they're not bad people, but like that's their duty. It's that
yeah,
it's like, well, it has to go somewhere,
it's
and
like
so
Hades isn't a bad guy. He's just got a job to do.
exactly.
Like he is like, and he's not trying to corrupt anyone. He's just here to make sure the mortal or the deceased souls are kept care of, and they are in their appropriate spot.
hmm Uh, and yeah, so I think because demons and devils are cool. The whole like temptation of evil is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to figure out a way to like allow that. But I really like the idea of like Hades, where it's like, Hades is not evil, but Hades is in control of hell,
Yeah. And I
equivalent,
mean,
right?
Hades would hate undead things too, right? Like anything
Mhm.
that's in his realm needs to be dead. Anything outside of his realm needs to not be dead.
Yeah, and so I think that like I almost feel like there needs to be like another party here. Like there needs to be like the temptation sort of thing needs to be something else. So like maybe we instead of going with like the instead of like demons and devils being something that come from gods, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe they exist in their own right, like kind of like like yokai or
Mm-hmm.
the original definition of demon, which is like something in between mortal and god is a demon, where this
Okay.
this is just a supernatural thing that exists, that's
Mm-hmm.
powerful, that is out for its own interests and is mischievous and will do bad,
Mm-hmm.
and will do bad things if you give it its way.
Yeah.
And one of the bad things that they do is they're gonna send you to the wrong plane of the wrong afterlife
Oh.
maybe. um but that may be an interesting way to it's like the devil that you're interacting with is unaffiliated, like
Right.
it's their own guy, like trying to
Yeah.
do things. That may be an interesting take.
Maybe. Hmm. Yeah, maybe like devils and demons at that point, or I guess just devils because demons are different fiends. Um, maybe they're just kind of like those always have been around things,
hmm
and they've got like certain powers they can do, and the more they corrupt mortals, the
Yeah,
more their influence
like they're
grows.
so like one of the reasons why they're nefarious is that because like they have to be self-serving, and everything they do has to be for themselves.
Yeah.
Like they like the only thing that's giving them power and ability is their own actions, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why they end up screwing people over and stealing
Mm-hmm.
things and doing you know instigating terrible magical rituals that'll make them
Mm-hmm.
more powerful, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe.
I also like the idea that D&D puts forward with like the Blood War, where it's like also these guys are just doing their job, where
hmm
it's like these guys, like they have a function in the cosmology, like they're trying to keep like the crazy chaos at bay, and the reason they exist and corrupt mortals is to pull more souls down, feed the machine, throw like people at keeping chaos at bay. And so I think I would want to put something like that
so
in
you
there.
really do want the blood war, is what I'm
Well,
hearing.
I guess yes. um I guess I just want to have like a really good reason to have like this large, like I think in every religion they would probably like their bad place
hmm
would need to be fighting some version of the blood war.
hmm So, or you can have like a kind of Ragnarok sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
going on, where it was, but it's like there's going to be something that happens. There's going to be some event in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to be ready for it, and
Yeah.
we need to do the things to be ready for it. And uh, is it so like participating in the blood war is torturous, and it's for people that are like, it's not a noble thing, because if it's something that is noble, then it should be it's something that the people from Valhalla are doing.
Right.
Yep.
Good point. Something that I get from the show The Good Place is
Mm-hmm.
uh the Bad Place is just a rehabilitation center until you are able to become one with the universe, or go and be in heaven and then become one with the universe. God damn
See,
it,
like that's
Greg.
that's a, that's
Yeah,
a really important question.
yeah.
Is like, so if it's something that, because to
Or
me,
maybe
like the blood
they're
war is like it's like a meat grinder,
yeah.
right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's like that's his interpretation, and the reason why it's being fought is not because the devils are doing a great kindness to the world. It's
Mm-hmm.
because they hate demons that much.
Yeah.
It's like that is their feud, that is, like that is their turf war.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think, okay. So here's where I'm at now. So let's go back to your little spirits that have always been here and always will be thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that basically they're just like the chaotic evil versus uh, lawful evil. And so they're just in a turf war with them because they always have been and always will be,
Mm-hmm.
and that is unrelated to the relative religions.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's probably those things existing is probably baked in to that those cultures in different ways.
like knowing of it.
Yeah, where it's because I mean, if these things are always around and always have been, these people probably have myths and legends and have built it into their
Mm-hmm.
stuff or whatever, and maybe it did become part of the religion, Christianity
Yeah.
equivalent. But it probably if you get buried well or whatever, you don't you can avoid those, but there are devils and demons and stuff that people need to fight.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just having the turf war thing where it's no, these are my souls, I would like to corrupt them so that they all look like me. It's no, these are my souls, I
So
want to corrupt
when
them so they look like
someone,
me.
so when you're like, okay, we want to give a bad fate to someone, we want to send them to, we want to bury someone in a way to send them to hell. That is being done because this fight's going to be happening no matter what, and we want to do this to to punish this person, to give them the worst fate possible. They were a
Mm-hmm.
terrible person, and so that's why we're going to send them into this place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like we want to bolster this fight, we want
Mm-hmm.
to build up one side, because then it's a noble cause. Instead,
Yeah.
it's just we want to basically put, we want this person to be tortured, and so we're going to
Mm-hmm.
put them in a place where they'll be tortured forever, in used in infernal, to fuel infernal machines,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So here's kind of where I'm at. So you've got, your cultural heavens, cultural hells equivalent. You got your cultural afterlives, and then you've got, these demons and devils that are
So
scheming.
what if demons and devils were just two, they were just two regional deities that have gone just in an all-out fight, and they've been like that for a really long time.
So I'm kind of thinking of it your afterlife you've got on a linear scale going literally up and
Mm-hmm.
down, and then devils and demons kind of being the x-axis on that.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's you've got your souls, your mortal plane doing whatever, and then your demons and your devils just fucking hashing it out while all this other stuff is going on.
Okay, so those are something. So demons and devils are transcendent of culture. They're part of the universe.
Yes,
so
that's where
they're
I'm at
on this.
currently, but
They're
that
on
might
kind of the
change.
same. They're basically on the same level as natural things, like
Mhm.
the god of the ocean, like the, not the god, but like the the things that
Yeah, the
that
natural.
the natural orders, right? Like
Yeah.
the, it would be what you're, you know it'd be like great old ones,
Mhm.
that kind of thing, if you're going for if you want to incorporate it into warlock
Mhm.
shenanigans, or what druids are worshiping. Like it's
Yeah.
things that are nameless,
Mhm.
uh and something that's so more profound and powerful than your idolatrous named
Mhm.
god thing. That also means that most druids would probably end up in the Feywild or Shadowfell too, because they would be considered godless.
Yes. Not to say that, you know, in a certain culture you couldn't have like a
You couldn't
like
have
a like a wild
you
god or
could
whatever.
you could have both maybe,
but I'm
right?
guessing most druids would probably end up, you know, being more inclined to the Feywild and the Shadowfell. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say so. And if they were in the Shadowfell, they'd probably like have a different kind of set of circumstances going on than just the run of the mill
Mm-hmm.
people.
Well, you could have like your eco-terrorist druids
Yeah.
end up in the Shadowfell,
Yeah.
right?
Like he's just angry and godless
Yeah.
instead of like joyful and godless, or like at peace and godless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I think everyone would just be like, yeah, there's a demonic incursion. Okay, all hands on deck. Let's maybe, you know,
Mm-hmm.
partner with some devils, but like don't make a deal. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make it to any of
Yeah.
our afterlives.
And
But maybe some cultures are like, nah, dude, being a devil is better than this afterlife,
Mm-hmm.
or better than, you know, being damned to hell.
Maybe. I think that you'd want to retool a lot of like devils and demons if
Mhm.
you're going to have them be explicitly like beyond culture. That makes sense. And something that have, you know, been like before all like like there's not like there's not a number of gods that have created all these devils and has its
Mhm.
own personal foibles. It's something more than that. It's like a force of nature that's creating these things.
Yeah.
That means that I think you'd want them to like be a little different.
Yeah.
And not.
I think the Monster Manual does a decent job of like bringing you a few different kinds of like demons and devils that you
Mhm.
don't immediately associate with Christianity, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right; they'd have to
Yeah.
be very other.
But if you make them a regional
Mhm.
thing that has gone wrong in some way, then you can have all that cultural stuff. You
Mhm.
can have all of those idiosyncratic foibles
Mhm.
with them, instead of trying to like rely on things that are like more abstract.
Yeah.
You know, and still have them make sense.
Mhm. I also think that the devils probably have a way about them that they can change their form,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as they grow in power or whatever. So they can be like I'm anticipating like a level 15 imp
Mm-hmm.
kind of a thing, where it's like, no, this guy just likes to be an imp. Or if you're in your Japan analogous zone, like you're gonna have your own eye and whatever the hell else Japan demons,
Like you want them to
are.
be shapeshifters in a sense,
Like,
or like they've got a
well,
lot of
no, I'm just
control
saying
over
like
their form?
in different areas you'd kind of pull those tropes, because that's in those areas, that's what the people view the demons and the devils as, and so the demons and the devils like,
So the demon, so like the demons and the devils are like role playing to the culture that is there,
or the culture, or the demons and the devils liked those forms for whatever reason.
but they like those forms only in those regions.
Yeah, and so like different regions would. Oh, I see.
But like, why is that? Why do they care about the regions? This is something beyond the material world.
So okay, so here's another thought: is that a mortal can only perceive these demons in a certain way, like their real, like the way that they exist is so far beyond like normal comprehension that like they come across as these different things.
So that it would be your, like, you've got. I know what you're saying. I'm thinking of a good way to describe it. The demon doesn't really have a physical form, more or less. It doesn't have like an actual shape, and so you have to give it a shape by associating it with the stories that you already have, and so your mind is telling you how this thing should be perceived.
Yeah, and maybe there's like some kind of,
that means that mechanically they should be the same, and that also means that you're going to have a party of disparate characters, and they're going to be seeing a different thing.
Oh, God damn it, Craig.
Just like there's the
Right.
implications.
I think that the easiest, until I can like really throw my brain at it, I think just the idiosyncratic like whatever demon
Mhm.
wherever solution is kind of the way to go.
So yeah, I know what I would do is that, and I know this doesn't fit with what you prefer, like
Mm-hmm.
what like
That's fine.
we can see the we've been doing this long enough that we've
Mm-hmm.
noticed themes in each other's world building
Mm-hmm.
and what we really like. And one of the things that we're always different on is that I really like not having a good and evil axis
Mm-hmm.
in the canonically, like
Yeah.
within the setting. It's something where like I find it more interesting. I actually really do like an order and chaos axis,
Mm-hmm.
um but the good and evil one, like find it a lot more interesting if that's something that's not cosmological and is more cultural and more
Yeah.
based on more based on the stories of what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like an evil god, but that god's evil not because he is the god of evil, but because
Mm-hmm.
he's done a bunch of terrible things, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, hey, that guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
So I really like the idea of these different evil factions
Yep.
are actually just a particular pantheon of some kind that
Okay.
has gone awry, or there's two pantheons that have decided to go to war against each other, and then these are their soldiers that you're seeing, and everybody
Okay.
else is like, hey, wow, that's really shitty and sucks that those to be a soul in that battle.
Mm-hmm.
So as our ultimate punishment, we're gonna send them to that.
Okay. So like, oh, all right. So that'd be like different culturally in like different areas, or are like all areas gonna have like a very similar like
So
fate
I
worse than
think
death?
I think there would be a number of different factions that
Okay.
would be doing evil things, and then you see particular ones in particular regions, since you want to, since like divinity is so much related to like regional areas,
Mm-hmm.
is probably just the regions where people are worshipped, right? There
Mm-hmm.
would be similarly, there would probably be a similar thing with these, more evil pantheons or evil beings,
Mm-hmm.
that they're, in that particular area, there are people that ask them for help,
Mm-hmm.
or uh that's just like has been their area of operation before, and
Mm-hmm.
they know that they can get souls and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an area where people are familiar with it. And so that would probably mean that you'd have a number of, like, you would have, if we're gonna like you use our world as an example, like you probably would have Europe sending people to the same, like all to like the same place, like the same kind
Yeah.
of hell. And then you would have like a bunch of like Asian countries would be sending theirs to their own different kind of hell,
Okay.
or pair of warring factions or
Yeah.
whatever. That's like what I would imagine. And then you can have your regional differences. Then you can have the like, what's this bizarre thing from this bizarre evil creature from some other place? Like, why is it over here?
Okay. And so like,
Because if
so this fate worse than death place would basically just be the hell grinder.
Yeah, and there would be a number of different hell grinders by in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would mean that you'd have like an interesting like taxonomy of demons, of like evil creatures,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that would, because if you've got like what you were suggesting before, where it's sort of like someone applies their own beliefs onto
Mm-hmm.
a demon, that means that like when you have the wizard, like when you have the guy that really knows what the fuck is going on, he's just like, oh, this is like a power level 4 demon, and so that's why you see it as this, right? It's
Yeah.
not actually like, oh, it's this special thing that's that has this particular abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh no, this is this particular like class of demon, and that's how we perceive it. But you perceived, this other
Yeah.
person will perceive it as something else. And so I think that you're going to be limiting yourself and having a lot less like variety and interest
Mm-hmm.
and like fun facts and details to give about creatures,
Yeah.
if you have it that way. Because either you're gonna have people that are misinforming the party and giving you these interesting facts and details.
Can you imagine
or
if like the party, or like they were set up to encounter some demons, and then they were fed information by like an inside, bad guy who's like, the demon you're gonna face is going to be so fucking terrifying, and everyone goes in, and it's like it would normally be like this little imp, and then it all of a sudden turns into this fucking like Balrog thing. That'd be baller. Yep. Sorry, that was a side note. Continue with what you were saying.
So anyway, that's just why I would think that I would choose to do like something that is more specific, and something that allows you gives you the justification to have a lot of different details and variations, and to make it complex. Because having it be there is like a one sort of like, beyond cultural cosmic source of lawful evil and chaotic evil means that those things are now like simplified down. Because even was it devil, is it demon princes and devil I don't remember.
I think it's I don't know, demon lords and like devil lords.
But like having those individual characters in there now means like, oh, like that's why we've got all these weird ooze demons, is because there's a demon prince that is a ooze, right? And like that gives you an explanation of like why these things exist,
right? Because
you have like a character, you have you have something that's personified, and that's why I think it's really important to have that there, right? Because if you're putting yourself in a place that doesn't give you a justification to have that personification, then
it kind of like loses its luster a little bit.
Then when you do make something up there, then it feels half baked and forced.
It feels as cheap as the thing that you just copy pasted.
And and we're in this scenario, we're already saying that like kind of like the true forces of like nature are in that same kind of realm. Like there are gods that are related to natural things, but like the the thing that really is in control of the sea is something that is nameless and without form and is beyond human recognition. But I think that's okay, because we don't want to have a smorgasbord of like sea monsters, right? Anything that's like, we're kind of talking about like, I forget what they're called in Norse mythology, but there's like drowned sailors.
Oh yeah, I don't know what they're called either.
Yeah, but like that's super cool, and like our explanation of that is that that's this particular person that died in a terrible way and has now been given, their soul has been lost and given to
the like nameless god,
god of the sea, and like this is how they're, this is what happens because of it. And so the interesting personification is like, how did someone die? How did this one person die? That gives you this particular, that gives you this thing out of it. So
yeah, I think that's really neat. And I think not every culture, but cultures have got like gods of the seas and stuff, and like those can still function, but they are different than this like in this otherworldly.
It's about it would not be like,
and a lot of those would probably just be like kind of like your surface level ocean, but it's like the vast deep
or not. I'm not thinking like surface level, but like they are not the ocean, but they are a conduit to it. They're a conduit to like to water in the sea. Like they're a conduit to assisting you deal with this particular force, but they are not the force itself.
Right. They might claim to be, right? I can see like a Poseidon analog being like, I am the ocean.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the ocean rises up and
there's
it's like,
these,
you are not.
And then there's these druids that are like this idolatrous motherfucker. Like, we're going to kill every one of your worshipers because like, yeah.
No, that'd be dope. And I think that, druids are probably, they're going to be, I mean, you can't be atheistic because like obviously the gods exist in this, but you could be like really agnostic and be like, that ain't, that ain't the right shit.
No, you're not.
There is so much spirituality beyond what you think there
Well,
is.
it's you're atheist in a different way. It's like what it is you're just saying like, well, those aren't really gods.
Yeah, it's like
That doesn't really, like that's not really the important thing.
Yeah.
It's something beyond that. Like
Mhm.
that's the attitude that they would have. Like that's what being godless would be. It
Yeah.
would be like, oh well, though, like that God's just an idol,
Mhm.
and doesn't matter. I don't think that anything matters, or I think that this more ancient force is what matters.
Mhm. Sweet. Well, I don't have a whole lot else to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is usually how it goes. We just kind of like peter out.
I think so. The one thing that I think would be fun is if we can give some ideas about, like natural forces, like what would be like dying in a particular way that would give your soul to one of these ancient forces, and that would create, a monster coming back. So drowning in sea is one, right? And I think another I really like. So
I feel like starving,
or
like eating something poisonous, or like getting killed by like wild animals.
So I think that like starving would be another good one. I think that exposure would be another good one.
Yep.
I
feel like exposure would give you like Ice King vibes or whatever.
I really like. So there's an actual form of burial that exists in places like
Are you going to talk about sky burials again?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about sky burials as well. Yeah, in Nepal, other places where there just like isn't a lot of dirt. Like you're on the side of a mountain and there's not a lot of dirt until you just hit mountain. And in those places, you have sky burials, which is your body is put on like a platform and is it's filleted and usually in some form, and then it's consumed by birds.
Yep.
And so I think being consumed by wild animals would be a cool thing. Like,
and there's probably like a ceremonious way to be consumed by wild animals, and then there's a different situation where you got mauled by a saber-toothed tiger and then brought back to the den to get feasted on by your cubs.
So I think the creature that ate you becomes possessed or something, like it becomes monstrous.
Oh, right. And that actually could explain away a lot of like the really crazy kooky monsters and like aberrations and whatever in D&D. Like a lot of that stuff like can be natural, but like you don't get a gray render out of nowhere.
Yeah.
All I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And that also is something where like some monstrous rabid beast shows up and you're like, okay, well, someone died in the woods. Who was that? Right? It begs the question of like how, like, okay, we know the means by which this monster is created.
Yep.
Now, what are the details of that? Who was it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, was someone, like, we know someone was murdered, and then we couldn't find the body, and then this thing showed up.
You get really supernatural vibes from this, where it's just like kind of your monster mystery of the week.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
So dying at sea is like definitely like I think the sort of bloated, waterlogged corpse that walks off of the ocean floor.
I also really like the idea
cool.
of like turning into like a deep scion or whatever, where it's like you become this like crazy, monstrous, otherworldly creature, but you're not a bloated corpse.
Oh yeah. Like
I like a bloated corpse just as much as the next guy, but I don't want to limit my options.
Yeah, something much more Cthulhian.
Yeah.
So like a sky burial just leaves bones. Oh, you have to have one for burning to death.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Man, under what situation would a person like? I'm trying to think of what situation you would burn to death in a non-ceremonial way, but also in the woods. Like if you got caught in a wildfire, or you had a really unfortunate accident with your with your campfire,
or it's like a suicide sort of thing.
Right.
Like you're gonna.
And I feel like a suicide, I would almost consider a sort of ceremony.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That would.
I'd
That's an
probably
interesting take.
I'd say suicide most likely would land you in the Shadowfell.
Yeah.
But you know, case
Or-
by case basis.
Yeah. There's just like particular.
Especially because like if you're committing suicide, disclaimer, there's lots of hotlines out there. Go get yourself one. Like your head and your spirit is not in a good place. And so like in a D&D scenario, or at least my D&D scenario, like your soul is already like in anguish, despair, sorrow, or whatever, and that would just like
put you right
highway
there. Yeah,
straight
absolutely.
to the Shadowfell. So yeah, I would say that most of the time they go there, but case by case basis, like they might turn into like this crazy monster if they knew like a certain way to do it. Like if they were like scholarly and they're like, well, if I can ascend, I guess, if you know, I do this ritual, which happens to be ritual self-sacrifice.
It's a lot of the ideas of like the specifics of what kind of monstrous thing you become like involves like the person's former body, but I don't always want to do that, right? Like I'm struggling to try to not immediately go to that option, because it's like, oh, you die from fire. Okay, your skeleton is constantly burning and on fire and wanders.
You are the Human Torch without bones.
Right. Yeah. Without flesh, just bones.
Oh, right. Just you are Ghost Rider.
Yep. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but like, how many of these are just going to be like your body walking around doing something? And so that's something where I'm struggling to come up with ideas.
I feel like then maybe you'd also like you could consider someone becoming a malevolent spirit, like at that point. But again, you'd have to be like, okay, is this guy going to go to the Shadowfell? Are they going to go to the Feywild? Or are they just going to become like a wandering malevolent spirit until they're put to rest? Like a ghost, but more nature-y. Yeah. I guess.
I think that's something to think on.
Yeah, I like that. I like those ideas though, and that gives you a lot of leeway to like explain away a lot of stuff in your D&D.
Yeah, and maybe it's
campaign.
maybe it's something that isn't super well nailed down. Like maybe you do this the opposite way, where you're like going through the monster manual and you're like, what made this thing? Like, oh, I guess it was someone that lit their house on fire to kill them, to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And okay, that's how this thing is made. And you kind of like come up with your recipe for each monster that you see, and it's like, oh, this thing was created by someone dying of thirst in the desert, and this is someone dying of thirst on sea, like this, that
right
kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I think that, and it leaves a lot of room to be like homebrewed too, and it gives your players, should they choose to engage with the lore, or should you make them engage with the lore, like a different way to take care of these monsters, right? So like if someone's remains are still relatively intact somewhere, and they've turned into this like ghastly monster ghost whatever thing, you go full supernatural, like dig up the bones, salt, oil, fire, whatever,
and so you've got two you got two party members that are like distraction, like they're like trying to keep the thing like engaged, while the other two people are like
dude, that's a classic supernatural episode.
That's great,
dude. It's great too, because then like as a DM you get to say, yeah, this is the cool stuff that I've written, interact with it, and then they do, and you're like, yes, and then they talk about how like it was so epic that they're trying to get this creature to follow them and stay away or whatever, and they almost tripped and died, and then at the 11th hour they found the box, or they found the bones or whatever, salted, buried them in some way, shape, or form. I don't fucking know.
I'm thinking just ways that you would facilitate this, like someone can see like a faint link between the creaturous thing going around and the buried bones, and so you're like, you got to find the monster first, and then you have to go for the monster and follow that to wherever it is.
Yep.
And so like so you have to like first like kick the bee's nest, metaphorically.
Yep.
You have to find it first, and then you're like, okay, now we have to go solve the problem, and then so you've got it chasing you the whole time. That would be pretty fun.
Yeah, and with a lot of it, you can, explain away. It's like, okay, yeah, in this person's heart, they were X, Y, Z, like they were actually a terrible person, and that's why they turned into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy who just went he was communing with the woods, and then just like died of starvation for this, that, or the other reason. Like he turned into a different monster because he had
Mm-hmm.
a slightly different set of circumstances.
Or maybe that's like,
Or maybe he turns into the same monster with different mannerisms.
yeah, or like maybe it's not even a monster. Like, you know,
Mhm.
there's like a, you know, a dryad or something. I you know,
Mhm.
dryad can mean a lot of different things. I'm imagining like a tree with a face that just
Okay,
like
you're not
talks to
thinking
you.
sexy tree lady?
Not sexy tree
Oh,
lady.
bummer.
But it's like, you know, you go to some place and then there's like, you know, there's like a tree with a face that talks to you
Mhm.
in a really old accent, and
Oh
like talks to you
man.
like your grandparents talk to you, and it's like, leave me be. I don't want anyone to be here. Leave me alone, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
oh well, that's like, you know, that's someone that you know, died of dysentery in the woods,
Mhm.
and this is their fate, is like they're gonna be stuck here,
Mhm.
and they're for some reason are pretty salient, like
Mhm.
conscious, and so maybe, you know, they'll do something for you if you agree to
Mhm.
say, you know, to save their soul, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you have to first convince them that that can even happen. But that may
Right.
be an interesting like an interesting character that you just run across somewhere, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, how the hell am I gonna have interesting NPCs in the middle of the goddamn forest? Well,
Mhm.
the forest is talking to you.
Right. And oh man, so I'm thinking so like tree ants and stuff like that, right? And I'm also trying to think of like, you know, this this monster started by this really unfortunate way that this guy died, right? Like, or maybe if it's a tree ant or whatever, this guy like communed with nature, did some whatever fucking things, died of natural causes in the forest, and then became a tree ant, and then made more tree ants
Mm-hmm.
somehow. And I think that's another way that you can start to write monsters too. So like not everyone
Guy
is
has
is
split
a
personality disorder. Makes
yeah. Yeah.
or it's like you find the ent that's like his spite, and
Mhm.
then you find the ent that's like his sadness, and then you find the ent
Oh
that's like
man.
his
Or
like,
like,
yeah.
and they turn into like different. I'm thinking like the different tribes events or whatever, and like
Mm-hmm.
all their different general characteristics were just like they're explained away as being just like the different parts of this guy's soul.
Mm-hmm.
Like the caretaker of the forest like died and
Ooh, yeah.
laid among the
Yeah,
trees,
it's like
and
this is how I will protect this place with my
yeah.
death.
Oh man.
And
And he's like, "Don't fucking bury me."
yeah, yeah.
So in I don't know, in NADPOD they were talking about how the first vampire was cursed by Pelor or whatever. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, fucking whatever. And so maybe like a vampire,
Oh yeah.
vampire OG,
Yeah.
dies some way. Like maybe he dies because he was thirsty and drinking. I don't fucking know. He got a blood disease from
Yeah.
sucking on people. Whatever. But then
Be careful,
but
kids.
then oof. Oh man. In any case, then can continue to replicate, not
Mhm.
replicate, but can create more because he's cursed in this
Yeah,
way that
but yeah,
allows him to do so.
I'm really into that.
But you
So
can also create another master vampire if you're able to create the circumstances under which the original
mhm.
vampire was
So
created.
like that's how you get your Western vampires and your Eastern
Yeah.
vampires.
You know how badly I want to do like an old west
Mhm.
like vampire
Oh.
thing. God, to be
Mm.
be like, there ain't enough room in this town for the both of us.
Uh, so talking about like whenever we talk about vampires, I just have to bring up World of Darkness because it's so great. But one of the settings that I find like the most inspiring when it comes to like lore and world building, like I can just sit and read the World of Darkness wiki forever.
You can read any wiki forever.
I can. That's okay. Shut up. But particularly World of Darkness, particularly when it's about talking about the vampires, and the reason why is because it's a story, and the story is so interesting, and
Yep.
partially it's because it's based on Judeo Christianity, so it also is like
you can relate to a
you can
certain
relate to.
extent.
There's all these things that you know about already, but in World of Darkness, vampires are Canaanites. Like they carry the curse of Cain, and
Damn,
that's
that's
so
baller.
cool.
Like, and it's just like, and like, someone raised around the Bible's like, oh man, that's so neat.
Yeah, and but it's so cool because it's a story.
Yeah.
You can have this mythos of, the first vampire was so and so who did these terrible things, and and because he was so evil, he did so evil things, and this happened to him, and now we have this vampire problem, and it's all
and
this
is
guy's
his
fault.
legacy.
It's his legacy, right?
And like, and maybe he was slain by some like legendary hero of old, but that didn't solve the issue. It's like, no, these vampires are like killing, like chopping the head of the snake just makes more like individual snakes, right? And so like if you really wanted to get rid of it, you'd have to Van Helsing hunt down every goddamn vampire. Oh man, God, that makes me want to run a vampire campaign. Also, there's a new D&D book coming out about Ravenloft, by the way.
Oh,
I'm like I'm interested, but again, I don't run out of books very often.
I don't know a lot about Ravenloft, but I heard some people. I heard some people talking. It probably was WebDM. I heard them talking about how. Maybe I'm wrong. No, I think it was Coville talking about how Ravenloft was originally meant to be kind of like a one shot. Like it was meant to be sort of like something pretty small. And if they try to make it that again, I would be really interested in it.
Interesting. Yeah,
I'm weird. I don't like big campaign books. I like stuff that's like relatively small, like bite-sized. And so I thought I could be completely wrong, but my interpretation that Ravenloft was supposed to be one of those things that you could just, hey, I don't have anything to do tonight. You walk into a mist and then you end up in Ravenloft, and then you do Ravenloft shenanigans, and then you walk out of the mist, and now, hey, you're back where you were.
Yeah, I think they're like expanding. Maybe they're expanding on like that demi-plane or whatever, but it's supposed to be like this crazy like gothic horror kind of a thing. So I'm like really excited. I'm like, Ian, Courtney, gonna be all about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to like taking a peek at that. All right, you gotta. What else you got, Greg? No.
I
mean, okay, listener at home, and also I'm gonna stop being like all 12 of you, because apparently, and not apparently, but like that's not a fun joke to make, because it makes all your viewers be like, what the hell, man? I really like you guys. You guys are legit. So thank you to every listener who listens. If you've got a way that people die that we didn't talk about, ask us.
Yeah.
We're more than happy. I'm ecstatic whenever we get an email. We haven't got one in a while because we haven't posted shit for
things
forever.
In a while. Yeah.
But we've done a pretty good job this month, I'd say.
Yeah.
We got 2 episodes out this month so far, and then this one will be released in the future in March sometime. But yeah, so if there's like a way, like a really compelling way that someone could die, and you've got like a monster idea for it, like let us know. We'll talk about it. Because that's what we do, and that's what we like to do.
Yeah. It's cool. This sort of thing where we're figuring out the origin of why, like we're creating a rule in the universe and then figuring out what must come of it. It's like the cool stuff.
Yeah.
And you have your own ideas, please let us know.
Yes. Please. And then if you want us to do like more concrete stuff where it's like, let's do more cities or factions, or I was thinking about doing heroes today, but we didn't actually do it. Like if you want us to do something more like that and kind of dial back from the abstract, like nuts and bolts world building, like let us know, because we're also into that too.
Give us a question.
Yeah.
And we'll do it.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, we did Army
is.
of the Dead Men, which
that
is
was
still,
very specific.
Oh yeah. And that was like a very like location monster whatever thing based, but I think a lot of people think about world building as like, let's talk about politics, let's talk about building NPCs, let's talk about building kingdoms and trade systems.
I'm gonna tease this episode because it's something that I actually really want to do, and mentioning it maybe make it happen. But I really want to do a video about law enforcement and about like
right.
laws.
And by video you mean podcast.
Yes, podcast.
Although technically these are uploaded to YouTube, so even though you don't get
Mm.
to see our beautiful faces, you do get to listen to our voice while looking at a picture of our logo
Yeah,
on YouTube.
and it's
So I guess
technically
it's
a video. So that's what I plan on doing that in the future, and that's going to be one of those things where I'm going to describe a topic and a lot of ideas within it, and then go down to something much more and give a specific one in there.
Right.
So
I'm looking forward to it. We can probably, I mean, maybe
I've got
it'll
a
be our
lot of
next-
research to do.
Yeah,
Honestly,
that's the thing. I need to do more research for this podcast because I feel like there's a lot more cool stuff that I could pull from if I actually like took some time and looked. But I tell you what, my time's at a freaking premium these days because I got so much going on and I play too much Valheim. So there's that.
And you just don't have any choice, but you got it.
Yeah, I know. It's
is
like
how it works.
like I've got work, sleep, food, fiance, and Valheim. And Valheim takes up too much time, but god damn it, I can't stop.
Yeah, it's not it's not going to change. There's not a dial
Right.
on this.
It's on or off.
Yeah.
Dude, video games are fucking they drive me crazy because they just eat up all your time and it doesn't feel like you're getting anything out of it. But at the same time, I'm just chilling with my boys.
Mm-hmm.
And what else can you do these days?
Yeah.
So, whatever. I guess the other thing that you could do these days is get with your good pal Greg and make a podcast.
Yeah.
So go find a Greg.
Yeah.
Better yet, go find a Darren.
Go find your Greg or your Darren.
Right. Everyone's got a Greg or a Darren. And if you are a Darren, find your Greg. And if you're a Greg, find your Darren. But there's others out there too. Go find your podcast buddy. Make a podcast that a few dedicated people listen to regularly and love them with your whole heart. Man, I got sappy.
Yeah, you got sappy there. Yeah.
Email us, lorefoundry@gmail.com. No, thelorefoundry@gmail.com. Website is lorefoundry.com. And I don't tweet. That's it.
Thank you
Whatever.
for listening.
Bye. All right. There we go.
There you go.
I think.
Yeah. I think you're fine. It was just like at an angle.
Yeah, well, I want it to be at an
You
angle,
want- you
Greg.
want
I
it to
want
be
to
at an
have
angle?
I want to have bad audio quality.
Well, as long as it's consistent, then it's
You're right.
then
right,
it's
right.
okay.
I'm just gonna start talking all over the place
No.
and just fucking throw you for a loop.
No.